What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of the NFL Whip Around. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Coach Kevin Smith. Coach, training camp is here, man. What's up?
It is, Jeff. Real football, kind of. Closer to real football. That's exciting.
And you are headed to St. Vincent College. Is it Wednesday this week?
Wednesday of this week, yep. Out to Latrobe, Pennsylvania to check in on the Pittsburgh Steelers. One of these days, Jeff, I'm going to tie this into a loop. You know, Commanders, Ravens, Steelers, Eagles, Jets, Giants. Going to hit all of them one of these days, but this darn football coaching keeps getting in the way.
I was going to say, I'm surprised you didn't say you were going to go up to see your buddy Stefanski. Are they in Cleveland? I don't know if they travel.
Yeah, they're near Cleveland, Mantua or something like that. Whatever, they're near Cleveland. But yeah, bang a left, hit Pittsburgh, bang a left, you'll be in Cleveland in no time.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about a lot of training camp information and news that's been happening around the league as we touch on 5 topics. I do want to tell everyone to direct, if you missed last week's episode where we broke down storylines for all divisions across the NFL, go check that out. But let's start off with the Dallas Cowboys. It's easy. It's the Dallas Cowboys. It's a billion-dollar organization, one of the wealthiest owners and the wealthiest organizations. It's easy to always start off with the Dallas Cowboys, but it's interesting some of the moves they're making, Coach. They extended tight end Jake Ferguson over the weekend. They signed him to a 4-year, $52 million deal. There's still no word on Micah Parsons. There's no extension talks. If it is happening, it's not being made public. Dallas will also have to think about extending players like Tyler Smith, DeRon Bland, and even George Pickens if they choose to do so after the season. What do you think they're waiting for in regards to Micah Parsons?
It's a great question. Yeah, I saw a little headline that said Cowboys extend key player. And I said, oh, they got a deal done with Parsons. And I clicked on it, and no, it was tight end Jake Ferguson. And this comes off the heels of some big signings this past week. Terry McLaurin gets a deal done. Rashawn Slater breaks the bank for an NFL offensive tackle. Even the Bengals holdout rookie Shamar Stewart comes to terms. But no news with the Cowboys. And it's fascinating, the negotiating tactics that they're taking. I remember when Jerry Jones was negotiating with Dak Prescott and he pretended not to even know his agent. He just pleaded ignorance. Who is this guy? And now they're talking about Micah Parsons is important, but we have a lot of important players. They're lumping him in with all these other Cowboys. And he's not another Cowboy. He's the best player on the team. He's a top 10 player in the NFL. I think ultimately something will get done, but I just can't fathom the negotiating strategy because much like with Dak Prescott, who they overpaid for, they're going to wind up paying an absurd amount of money.
I'm going to ask you this question, and this is going to bleed into Trey Hendrickson discussion as well as we're talking about pass rushers. Do you think, and I did see this reported, that at least with Hendrickson and the Bengals, the T.J. Watt signed the deal, what he signed, threw a major wrench into plans to try and get these other pass rushers signed. Do you think there's an impact? And it's not just a Dallas thing in this instance. It's a positional thing. It's being paid what they feel is fair market value. How did Watt's deal that he signed, we know the 3-year extension, $41 million during the new year, new money type, that's what he was getting. Do you think that had any impact on it? We'll start off with Parsons.
I think so. I mean, Parsons is 26, Watt's 30. I mean, if you're Micah Parsons, you absolutely are arguing that you should be paid more than T.J. Watt, who got a little bit more than Myles Garrett. I mean, I don't know what that number looks like exactly, but it's clearly in the mid-40s now. I would think that the T.J. Watt extension upped the ante on what Dallas is going to have to pay Micah Parsons, or at least on what he's going to ask for. Because he can make a very credible argument that I'm an equal player to TJ Watt and I'm 4 years younger. And, you're going to have to pay me for those 4 years of service. So it just feels like that. Like if you're Dallas, why would you not have tried to get that deal done before Watt? Maybe you're hoping that Watt would come to some team-friendly deal with the Steelers and you could use that to leverage Parsons, but it worked out the opposite.
Well, let's go back a second. Something you just said. Myles Garrett is a game wrecker. And I know that it's an AFC North bias. I see a lot of Browns games because clearly I'm following the division as a Steeler fan. TJ Watt is a game wrecker. I'd say that Max Crosby is a game wrecker. Do you put Micah Parsons in that category? Because honest to God, I have not seen a lot of Dallas Cowboys games because it's an NFC team, and obviously I root for an AFC team, so I pay more attention to that conference. I don't know if from an outsider's perspective if I put him in that same group. You do?
Well, I'll say this. I watched a great breakdown that Brian Baldinger did last year on how the Philadelphia Eagles changed their entire protection scheme to account for Micah Parsons. How basically they shut him down by essentially, moving their rotations towards him, chipping him constantly, giving him the star treatment. And there's only a few guys in the league who get that. There's only a few guys in the league, edge rushers in particular, for whom an offense, particularly an established one like the Eagles, is willing to make adjustments to account for you. So that, in combination with the fact that he is younger than all of them. Hendrickson's 29, Garrett's 30, Watt's going to be 31, right? So maybe Parsons isn't the exact equal of the top two, Watt and Garrett, but he's 4 years younger, and I think that accounts for something significant.
I don't want to poo-poo what Micah Parsons has done in the league. I think he's a phenomenal football player, but I don't know if I'd have him in that upper echelon. He has had injury issues. He has struggled to stay in the lineup, and I know that's been true with some of these other players, but still it's interesting. Now let's also talk about Hendrickson, which you just brought up. Reports out of Bengals camp is, first, Hendrickson's not there. Second is that he saw what Watt got, and you could tell that they were having negotiations about numbers, and then all of a sudden he said, whatever we talked about, that's now null and void because I want that. And so what do you think about the Bengals? They did get Shamar Stewart under contract, and he's been back at camp. But what do you think about Hendrickson and how that plays a role?
That negotiation is going to be a difficult one because the Bengals are not like a lot of the teams in the NFL that are owned by these mega billionaires. He doesn't have Jerry Jones. The Bengals don't have Jerry Jones money. I mean, I know there's a salary cap, but the Bengals are the Brown family. I mean, all the money is in the family and in what they've built in that franchise. The money doesn't come from the outside like it does, again, with all these billionaire owners, the Woody Johnsons and the Jerry Joneses and those guys. So they have been, over time, notably, I don't want to use the term frugal, but they have to be more careful with the money. They just don't have the outside cash to blindly throw at people. And so I think that negotiation may drag on because they've already committed an insane amount of money on the other side of the ball. And can they do it again? Can they pay another guy? If they pay Hendrickson, TJ Watt money, then well over 60% of their salary cap will be committed to 4 players. Burrow, Higgins, Chase, and Hendrickson. How do they do that?
All right, prediction time. Do the Cowboys and Micah Parsons and do the Bengals and Hendrickson get a deal done before the end of the preseason? Yes or no?
The end of the preseason. I don't know. I think Dallas will get a deal done with Parsons. The Cincinnati situation could drag though.
Really? You think it's going to go into the regular season?
I don't know, man. These guys are smart. They on both sides of the aisle. They come to a deal a couple days before the season starts, and they don't miss games. But this one just feels like there's some, if not animosity, then that they've dug in on both sides.
I agree. I agree with everything you said. The prediction. I think Micah Parsons gets the deal done this training camp, and I think that we'll see about Hendrickson. I'm not so sure what's going to happen there. But let's go to our next topic. A player that we know a lot about is his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kenny Pickett, quarterback, suffered a hamstring injury at Browns camp this past Sunday and is likely to miss the next few weeks of practice. Now, Pickett was reportedly off to a great start, and he looked like the front runner for Cleveland's starting quarterback job. How does this injury shake up their quarterback competition? You would know this because you talked to Coach Stefanski just a couple weeks ago on your Call Sheet Daily podcast. What do you think about Pickett's hamstring injury?
Well, it was clear that he was going to be given the first opportunity to win the starting job because they know what they have in Joe Flacco. They weren't going to give Flacco a ton of reps. They recognized that, hey, look, if none of these other guys steps up and claims the job, we can always turn to Joe. So Pickett gets the lion's share of the reps with the ones the first couple of days of training camp, and by every account you read, he looked pretty darn good. And now this is going to set him back a couple of weeks. So this is a great opportunity for one of those rookies to step up. But I do not expect either to be able to show enough to claim the starting job in week 1. I think unless one of Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders absolutely lights it up, and it's not going to be Shedeur Sanders. So Dylan Gabriel. Unless Dylan Gabriel absolutely, blows the roof off of things in Cleveland over the next couple of weeks, I'd expect Flacco to be their starter if Pickett can't recover in time. Because those hamstring injuries, the only thing that really cures them is time. You can't like rush your rehab back from those, or you set yourself back.
When you said weeks, plural, that was big for me because, he's not an entrenched starter in the league. If they were to have brought in someone like Kirk Cousins, let's just throw his name out there, someone that has started in the NFL for a very long time, you can say, Kirk, just take your time, man. You'll be fine, and we know that when you get back, you're going to be okay. You can't say that with the Kenny Pickett. He's in a new system. It's a new team. He needs those physical repetitions, and also let's not pretend like he's had a dramatic amount of success in the National Football League since he was drafted by the Steelers in 2022. I think that, and I hate to say this, but sometimes injury can derail a team's plan. And I agree with what you just said. I could see Joe Flacco taking advantage of Kenny Pickett being injured and them turning to him, and he's going to get those lion's shares of the reps. I mean, the rookies are going to get the camp reps, but in terms of the preseason, getting ready for the regular season, I mean, there's still a lot of time, and I don't want to rush to judgment here, but sometimes these things can linger, and if they do, I don't see Kenny Pickett necessarily being the guy that's just going to be able to jump right back in or on Mike Tomlin's proverbial moving train. But let me ask you this, Coach. After you talked with Stefanski and we're talking about Browns quarterbacks, what vibe did you get from him as it pertains to 4 quarterbacks in the mix? There's no way they keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster. I mean, that would be insane. It would be insane to keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster. What do you think is going to happen as you talk about Dylan Gabriel, Shamar Sanders, all those, or Shador, sorry. What do you think about all those players? How are they going to iron themselves out?
I think they really wanted Kenny Pickett to step up and claim the QB1 job with Flacco as the backup and then one of those 2 rookies being able to sort of lock down the QB3 designation. It wouldn't stun me, though, if they kept 4. And here's why. Because Flacco at age 40, you never know when the arm's going to go or when he was a statue when he was in his prime.
Yeah.
So he ain't moving out of the pocket. You never know if that guy's going to take a shot and get knocked out of a game. And you can't really try to slip one of these 2 guys, Gabriel or Sanders, onto the practice squad because you know that some other team's going to claim them. So it wouldn't stun me if they kept 4, particularly if Pickett's injury does linger. The report on Sunday was that they would reevaluate him in a week. So that takes you a week from yesterday. And now it's like, okay, well, if that reevaluation says he's progressing nicely, then you start with him with like the light jogging and the the reacclimatization to football, which probably takes another several days. So you're probably looking at 2 weeks at a minimum. That's a lot of valuable time. Like, can they afford to let one of those young quarterbacks go, given the fact that Pickett's been set back and Flacco's 40?
I always felt that the Browns were going to release one of these guys. I don't know who they were going to, either they try to trade them possibly, or maybe they, however it means. I didn't think they would have 4 potential quarterbacks on the roster. And this throws a giant wrench into those thoughts that I had. And I'm sure the Browns are probably thinking the same thing. What are we going to do? And so, but then again, you made your bed. You got to kind of lay in it. You drafted 2 quarterbacks in this draft. Well, what did you think was going to happen? And this was after, they already traded for Kenny Pickett, sending Dorian Thompson-Robinson to the Eagles. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. Any final thoughts on the Browns?
I think that they're in a difficult situation, but I think they have a plan for it. I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you I know exactly what it is. But like you said, they drafted these 2 quarterbacks after they had already traded for Kenny Pickett, and they knew they had Joe Flacco on the roster. So they have to have a plan for that, and it may be to keep all 4.
All right. Let's continue the quarterback talk, our third topic. This is an ongoing trend that I find is idiotic, but we'll talk about it nonetheless. The trend that I'm referring to is that both fans that are at open practices as well as reporters that are there at closed practices are starting to report stat lines during training camp practices. As an example, Jackson Dart went 11 of 13 in the team period for the Giants on Sunday. First, what the hell are we doing? And secondly, do you put any stock into these reports? Coach, I'll let you go first.
In an unpadded practice, no less, right?
Exactly.
I don't put any stock in those reports, Jeff. Although, Jeff, as a Steelers fan, I just saw on Twitter, Will Howard in the practice session so far is 31 of 35 with 12 touchdowns and no interceptions. Let the Will Howard era begin, Jeff. We're ready to crown that guy. But the only statistic I would put a little bit of stock in is if somebody's throwing a lot of interceptions, because it suggests to you that maybe they're not seeing the field right, or they're not on the same page with their receivers, and that you need some work there. But as far as the other stuff goes, it is one of the most useless things you can possibly do, keeping preseason practice statistics.
Well, there's some people, and Steelers fans are doing this, where they'll be running a 7-on-7 drill. And they go, Aaron Rodgers' stats during 7-on-7. Well, it's 7-on-7. It's not even a team period. You're not even doing 11-on-11 work. I do find that there's some value. We know that Mike Tomlin loves the 7 shots drill. I do find some value in the wins and losses there. Do you agree?
That's real football.
I mean,
they're doing it now where, again, unpadded. But when they get into real pads and you're playing to the whistle, then you'll get a pretty good indication there of things like how does the red zone offense, or how is it progressing, and things like that.
Explain the drill for non-Steeler fans that might be listening or watching that don't know what 7 shots is. I should do that first.
So they put the ball on the 2-yard line, and the offense has the opportunity to run 7 plays from the 2. If you score, you get a point. If you're denied, the defense gets a point. And the first unit to accumulate 4 points wins the drill. Now, I don't know if there's any ramifications for that other than, like in high school, we would have the losing team clean the field after practice, something like that. I'm pretty sure that doesn't go on at the NFL level. But maybe it's just bragging rights.
Yeah, but still, I think there's a tremendous amount of value in when the reporters will say the offense wins 7 shots 4-3. I look at that and say, okay, that is actually a training camp report that I can glean something from. And especially because they can tell you Aaron Rodgers finds Pat Freiermuth over the middle of the field. I'm thinking, okay, first, he's looking at the tight end. He hits a tight end over the middle, 2 things Steeler fans are not familiar with over the last, 4 or 5 seasons. So I can take something from those drills. What else, Coach, from these training camp reports, not necessarily quarterback, attempts and completions, could you possibly glean information from?
I'm more interested in bigger picture things. When I go out to Latrobe on Wednesday, one of the things I'm going to chart is personnel groups that the Steelers use. How often are they using multiple tight ends versus 3 wide receiver sets? Or on the other side of the ball, sub packages. How often are they in their 2-4-5 nickel as opposed to their base? And when they're in their nickel, who's playing where? Who's in the slot? Who's playing the free safety position? I think the thing that you can take away more so than the execution numbers, because the execution is a work in progress at this point, is the trends. What are they thinking personnel-wise? What are they thinking matchup-wise? What are they thinking situationally?
Yeah. And that's unfortunately not what's being reported. Everything else is being reported about,
That's not as sexy,
No.
If somebody writes that the Steelers were in 11 personnel on 12 snaps and 12 personnel on 20 snaps, the average fan will be like, okay, whatever. But if they write that, Aaron Rodgers threw 2 picks in practice, or that Will Howard was 11 for 11, then everybody gets excited.
I will say that there are some Steelers reporters that actually do a good job of talking about personnel and usage, and especially with a piece of the puzzle like Jalen Ramsey, which when the Steelers trade for him with the Minkah Fitzpatrick deal in Miami, no one knew, how are they going to use this guy? That we still don't know, but you're starting to get the picture's becoming a little bit more clear as it pertains to their secondary. So, okay, I'm looking forward to your report from Steelers camp on Wednesday, by the way. Let's go to our next topic. This situation in Vegas with Christian Wilkins is absolutely wild, and it's odd, and it's everything. Supposedly, Christian Wilkins, who had, I think, just signed a deal, and he was under contract, he was just removed from the team, supposedly to an interaction with another teammate. I have not read what that interaction was. Some players have said that this guy's always been a little weird. It makes you wonder what the heck went down. But nonetheless, Wilkins is going to sue the team as he tries to reclaim some of the guaranteed money from the contract that was voided. Coach, what do you think about this situation? It is weird.
Yeah, there's two issues here. There's this player conduct issue involving another player, which no details have really emerged from that. Right. So we're not sure about that. But the bigger issue is the Raiders released Christian Wilkins and voided his contract and are essentially arguing that because they voided it for medical reasons, that he got injured last year. He didn't follow the team's recommended rehab procedure. When he showed up at minicamp, they told him he needed another surgery. And he just said, no, I'm not getting that surgery. And now, as training camp was about to roll around, the doctors deemed him unable to begin the 2025 season, that he wasn't fully recovered from that injury. And essentially what the Raiders said was, you didn't follow the prescribed rehab program that we set out for you, and now you're unavailable to us. And then you lump in this, whatever this thing is, with a teammate, and they've just decided to void his contract. And that gets them out of having to pay him $35 million in guaranteed money. And that's what he's suing now over through the NFLPA, to essentially argue that his contract was wrongfully terminated and that the Raiders owe him that money.
It's a sticky situation, and this comes down to how they're going to look at everything. I find it difficult when you talk about the aspect that you brought up with the rehabilitation of an injury. I can understand why a player would say, I don't want to have surgery again. And at this point, it comes down to, and this is a talking point that we can discuss, if you're under contract with an NFL team, they own the contractual rights to you, but they don't own you. They don't own your physical body. And so if you're someone that says, like, yeah, my shoulder's been killing me, well, you need to have surgery, I feel like I can heal it on my own. That's a fine line, don't you think, Coach?
I do, and I think it all goes back to how the contract is worded. Is there language in his contract that says that there's an out there if he is physically unable to perform, or if he doesn't put himself in the best position to be able to be available on the football field? I mean, if they can make a credible argument that not only did he not follow their advice, but that the rehab that he did on his own, that he was negligent in that process, or that he didn't follow any guidelines diligently enough to make himself available to be healthy enough to actually play, then they might be able to get out of that. It'll all depend on how the contract is worded. And yet, we're talking about Christian Wilkins here. I mean, this is a guy who signed a $100 million deal with Vegas, who was considered one of the better defensive tackles in the NFL, and you're going to put him on that line with Max Crosby, and the Raiders were going to have a stellar front. So they're not moving on here from some fringe player, and that profile makes it more interesting as well.
I do think that this is going to be very interesting if, for instance, he does not win that lawsuit, and they say that the Raiders do not owe him the guaranteed money. Man, that could be a very telling result of a lawsuit, of a trial, or not trial, but a case that's going to be heard. Because if all of a sudden a team gets out from guaranteed money, then all these other teams, don't you think, Coach, could just follow suit and say, oh, yeah, we said that it was guaranteed, but you didn't do X, Y, or Z, so therefore we're going to get out of it. Do you think this could open up that box, that Pandora's box?
Oh, absolutely. And now you're going to really have to be careful when writing contracts to pay attention to the language in there, to make sure that guaranteed money is actually guaranteed, or like you said, there's not some trap door in there that you could fall through if you screw up on something that's buried in the middle of, page 57, something like that.
And I will say that this is not Raiders related, but the Shamar Stewart situation, which we mentioned earlier, that was rectified, he's in camp. It has not been reported, at least not that I've seen, whether or not the Bengals changed the verbiage in the contract or if he just signed it and said, fine, I'm just going to get there because I need to get to work. Have you heard anything on that?
I heard that he came off of some of his demands in terms of the language of that contract, that he budged a little bit.
There you go. That's interesting. This all plays into what's going to be setting up to be I think it's going to be a very dicey collective bargaining negotiation between the NFLPA and the NFL when we're getting closer to that time period where they're going to want, the owners are going to want 18 games. They're maybe not going to want to give up 50% of the pie. They might want a little bit more. could get dicey, Coach. We could be looking at a little bit of a lockout, just so you know. Let's keep it with the NFLPA. Boy, they are, well, let's just say it's not a great organization in terms of the people they've put in charge over the last few years. There's a scandal with Lloyd Howe, J.C. Tretter. They're both resigned. Coach, what the heck is going on, in your opinion, with these guys? I mean, we've got it's everything. It's so bad. I'll let you go ahead and explain it.
This doesn't bode well for Christian Wilkins, because if he's filing a lawsuit at a time when the head of the NFLPA, Lloyd Howe, has just resigned, and he resigned largely because of reports that surfaced earlier this summer via Pablo Torre's podcast, where he revealed that the owners pressured league executives, GMs and agent, or the guys who write contracts, etc., to minimize the amount of guaranteed money that they were putting in contracts in the fallout from the disastrous Deshaun Watson deal. The Browns give Watson $230 million guaranteed dollars. It's a disaster. And now the owners seem to collude with team executives to try to reduce the amount of guaranteed money in contracts. If there actually was collusion there, then that's a violation of the CBA, and now the owners can be sued by the players' union. But allegedly, the head of the players' union, Lloyd Howe, had knowledge of this so-called alleged collusion and did not inform the players' union about it. So essentially, he buried that. And he winds up resigning largely over this issue. And then J.C. Tretter, the second in charge, resigns because he's basically embarrassed by the whole thing. He's like, I don't want to work for this organization anymore. It's a you-know-what show. And he decides he's out. So now here's the NFLPA entering a season without adequate representation, without a head. Christian Wilkins filing a lawsuit with a rudderless organization. It just feels like, again, you're still 5 years away from the new CBA. But man, if the union doesn't get its act together, the owners are going to take full control of that negotiation process. And then who the heck knows what's to come.
Well, J.C. Tretter also did have some damning, I think it was tweets, or not tweets, but text messages that came to light about the Russell Wilson contract in Denver. And that was another example of a contract. It just seemed weird that the Players Association representation were basically saying, yeah, like, we don't, go ahead and do what you got to do to the owners. And it's like, well, wait a second, you're representing the players. Why would you have them take less money? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. And wasn't Lloyd Howe, he had other scandals as well. Wasn't he trying to write off like strip club expenses and stuff like that?
Yeah, when he was in the private sector, he'd been named in a sexual harassment lawsuit. So he's burned a pretty impressive trail throughout his career.
Hey, NFLPA. I thought DeMar Smith was like the best representative they had, and he got him through, I think, 2 CBA negotiations. Who knows they haven't signed any, they haven't put anyone else in that spot yet, have they?
Not yet, no.
Man, it's going to be tough. All right, let's finish this up with an interesting player profile. It's not a player profile, it's a profile. And this is something that I wanted to talk with you about and get your take, because you're older than I am. And even me at my age, I'm 42 years old. I've never gotten into this as much as some of the people that are even just a few years younger than me. And I want to profile John Madden, not from a coaching perspective, but from a video game perspective. I just saw a tweet before we went live that the 99 Club just came out. And the 99 Club is all the players who have a value or an overall rating of 99. Like, they don't have anyone that's 100 that's currently in the NFL. It's amazing how his name is more known probably for a video game than it is for coaching the Raiders, winning a Super Bowl, or even all the tremendous work that he's done as an announcer. And he was the voice of the NFL for a very long time. What's your takeaway on the Madden video game series? I was a Tecmo Bowl guy myself. Tecmo Bowl and Super Tecmo Bowl was kind of where I stopped. I never got into Madden as much, but I can't also deny the fact that it didn't introduce a lot of young people to the game of football in the NFL.
Jeff, I'm probably going to disappoint you with what I'm about to say, and a lot of fans are going to judge me for this, but I've literally never played Madden once in my entire life. It just was never on my radar. I guess maybe because of the coaching, you're just so kind of enveloped in that world that I didn't have a lot of free time to devote to it. But my son plays it. there's great stuff on there. When I've watched him go through the game, there's really interesting schemes. If you were a young person wanting to come up and learn the game of football, it'd be a great way to learn it. There's real football stuff in there. It's not like a bunch of crappy like fantasy plays being drawn up by video game designers. It's real stuff that real NFL teams run. It's real concepts. And they're designed, like the offensive part, to beat real coverages. Like you've got cover 4 beaters. Like to listen to my 12-year-old son talk about like, oh, what cover 4 beater should I run? That's pretty cool, because I don't even know if intellectually he knows exactly what he's talking about, but he knows that if the defense shows you that look, then he wants to run this play against it. And that's pretty cool in terms of being able to raise the football IQ of a lot of these people.
Well, let me ask you this, because, again, I have not played Madden either. I remember when the first Madden came out, it was on Super Nintendo. I did not have a Super Nintendo system, so I never played it either, Coach, so you're not alone. Do the current kids, so your son's 12 years old, do they play Madden and they love Madden, but do they know who John Madden it was and the significance that he had in the NFL?
Oh, God no. No way. They do not know at all anything.
Sucks. That sucks, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel like when you turn the game on, there should be something that talks about this is John Madden. Like this is why this game exists. I don't know.
You know what they would do? They would hit the B button that skips right past that. They would just go
You're exactly right. Yeah. But it's worth. I mean, there's a really great documentary which was done. I think it was ESPN did it after his passing, and. Really great, and I would recommend everyone to go check it out. You can stream it for free, and it's just all about him and his coaching, how he left coaching a lot earlier than people thought he would, and gets into announcing, starts this video game which no one thought would exist after a few years, and it's grown into this massive thing. I mean, it's incredible how Madden, after all these years, is still going on. But like you said, it's not always a bad thing. I'm not going to sit here and say that the young kids are idiots. They are, but that's beside the point. It's not because of that. So.
No, there are really some legitimately redeeming qualities to the game. And I think it's fantastic that the NFL players, they'll take to Twitter sometimes to like beef about their rating.
Yeah.
Where they like it matters to them what their Madden rating is, because in many ways that's how they're going to be viewed by the public. Like, oh, this guy's not any good. His Madden rating's like whatever, 70. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but like whatever, but it's not. It's a bad one. Yeah, all right, there you go. His Madden rating's 70. This guy sucks. Nobody wants to be thought of like that.
I mean, it even goes down to you have like overall ratings, but then you have specific ratings. So like Calvin Austin III as the Steelers would have a speed rating of probably 95. The guy's a burner. But he might have an overall rating of 80 because he's small and he doesn't have a good catch radius. It's crazy, but it does introduce a lot of young people to football, and hopefully they enjoy it. But all right, Coach, it's been a good show. Why don't you tell everyone what's coming up on your Call Sheet Daily podcast this week?
Yeah, got some cool stuff. Monday I had on NBA coaching legend Jim O'Brien, former head coach of the 76ers and the Celtics and the Indiana Pacers. And he's a basketball coach, but we were talking about universal coaching, things like player development and coaching toughness and mental toughness. That was a great interview. Tuesday, today, it's the 80th anniversary of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, which is the ship that delivered the atomic bomb to Tinian Island that was then dropped on Japan. And if you've ever seen the movie Jaws, you can probably remember Captain Quint talking about the Indianapolis going down and the sharks coming in. And we're talking about, the courage and what does real courage mean as opposed to the courage you see sometimes on athletic fields. And then Wednesday, I'll be out at Steelers training camp. So we'll file our reports from there.
Love it. Love it, Coach. As always, enjoy the trip to Latrobe, and we'll be talking next week. Take it easy.